Medieval peasants lived their entire lives in one room. Their homes were cramped, dirty, and freezing during the winter. Life was not easy. These people were desperately poor, but they had each other, and they created a culture, a way of life, inside their drafty huts. If you think your bedroom is too small, just wait till you hear about the typical peasant home. In today's episode, let's put the world away now. Lay your head down and imagine another time, a colder time, a slower time, when nights were longer and silence was deeper. Tonight, I want to take you back hundreds of years, to a simple wooden hut, somewhere in medieval Europe, where winter has settled like a blanket, and the world has gone quiet. The year is 1348. The summer sun beat down on the fields. Peasants toiled from dawn till dusk planting crops. But now the season has turned. Autumn rains have fallen. Winter has settled over the land. The days are short. The sun disappears by late afternoon, and the night stretches long and dark and still. The temperature drops. Soon it will be well below zero. There's no electricity, no glowing heaters, no thick glass windows, just a small fire in the hearth, a few wool blankets, and the body heat of those you love. You are a peasant. You work the land, and in winter, you survive. Your home is small. It's called a crock house. Wooden beams arch together like ribs. The walls are made of wattle and daub, a lattice of twigs and branches coated in mud. Above is a thatched roof. The floor is dirt, cold and damp. In the center, the fire. No chimney, just a hole in the roof. Smoke curls lazily upward, staining the rafters dark over the years. This fire dot is life. You keep it burning always, even at night. You sleep close to it. All of you. There are no bedrooms. Just one room. Shared by parents, children, and sometimes animals, chickens. Maybe a goat. Sometimes even a piglet or two, huddled for warmth. You lay straw on the ground. Top it with worn wool blankets, if you have them. And you tuck in, tight, layering rags and old tunics. Wrapping your feet in cloth. It's so cold. You can see your breath in the air. But you're used to it. Your body adjusts. Your mind quiets. You listen to the sounds. The crackling of the fire. The breathing of your family. The occasional grunt of a sleepy goat. Outside, the wind howls. Snow falls. You are grateful to be inside. You are lucky to be dry. What did peasants eat on winter nights? Simple things. Hot broth. Thick black bread. Beans and onions stored in root cellars. Sometimes cheese, if there's any left. And always ale. Not for drunkenness, but because water wasn't always safe to drink. You eat together, seated on wooden stools, huddled by the fire, the steam from your bowl warming your face. And when your belly is full, you begin to feel sleepy. They called it first sleep, because people in medieval times didn't sleep all at once. They often slept into parts. They'd rest from sundown until midnight, then wake up for an hour or two to stir the fire, say prayers, or just sit and listen to the stillness. Then they'd go back to bed to their second sleep. Softer, deeper. The cold didn't go away, but you learned to sleep inside it. Some peasants used stones, heated by the fire, wrapped in cloth, to place at their feet. Others shared beds, not for affection, but for warmth. The rich had furs. The poor had body heat. And, when it snowed, you listened to the hush of flakes falling on thatched roof. A soft, padded silence that calmed the mind. You might think of these nights as harsh. And they were. But they were also peaceful. Simple. Ritualistic. No screens, no noise. Just the sound of wood settling, the flutter of wind, and a quiet kind of togetherness. Now, for thousands of years, before the medieval period, people had been learning to adapt to the cold. Starting around 15,000 BC, when humans first began working with metal, people started building homes out of sturdy materials like stone and wood. Using iron tools helped them clear land and construct bigger, stronger buildings that kept out the weather. During the Roman Empire, houses had underfloor heating systems, heated rooms, and separate bathrooms. Life was good. But as the Roman Empire fell and gave way to smaller kingdoms, cities became more run down and people moved to the countryside. Building materials got cheaper. Homes were hastily thrown together with whatever was available: wood, wattle and daub, thatch, and clay. Windows were rare. Most homes looked something like what you would build with a cardboard box and masking tape. It wasn't great, but it was enough to keep the elements out. And then the Black Death hit. Between 1346 and 1353, the Black Death killed between 75 and 200 million people in Eurasia. It wiped out almost half the population of Europe. After such a massive loss of life, people got back to building better homes, bigger cities, and more complex cathedrals. They weren't thinking about rebuilding their homes. When the plague hit, most people were living in run-down rural shacks. Before the plague, one writer reported seeing people living in holes dug in hillsides. He called them half in the ground, half in the air. Some had roofs, some didn't. Some had one room, others had many. But across Europe, peasants were living in simple, poorly made homes with dirt floors, thatched roofs, and one central room for everything. They had no choice. Making an elaborate home took a lot of money and time, neither of which they had much of. They just needed somewhere to store their meager belongings, somewhere to cook their food, and somewhere to huddle with their loved ones against the cold. And, as long as the rain stayed outside, they were okay. We tend to think of peasants as uneducated rubes who knew nothing about the world. And, in some ways, that was true. They rarely traveled outside their village. They didn't really know anything about the rest of Europe, let alone the world. But they were far from stupid. They had been handed down generations of knowledge about farming, healing herbs, raising animals, cooking, and construction. And they used that knowledge to make the best of their situation. They knew how to live in small spaces. They understood the importance of community. They had to. It was literally the difference between life and death. If you wanted to share a bed with someone, you either had to be married to them or related to them. Privacy was non-existent. The entire village was your living room. If you wanted to talk to your friends, you had to walk to their house and hope they weren't too busy. If you wanted to meet someone, you had to go to the market and hope they were there. If you wanted to pray, you had to travel to the nearest church. If you needed medical attention, you had to go to the nearest healer. There were no phone calls, no internet, no television, no radio, No books, no newspapers. You couldn't order things to your house. You couldn't pay your bills online. You couldn't buy food delivered. If you wanted something, you had to get it yourself. Nothing came to you unless it was growing in your garden or cooked in your stew pot. Everything had to be earned. Everything had to be gathered, bought, borrowed, begged, or stolen. If you wanted to eat, you had to get up early and tend the animals. If you wanted light, you had to start a fire. If you wanted entertainment, you had to play a game or tell a story. In our modern world, everything is instantaneous. We are used to getting what we want when we want it. We're used to never having to experience darkness or silence. But for peasants, life was different. Their world was filled with waiting. Waiting for the sun to come up, waiting for the crops to grow, waiting for the animals to be ready to harvest, waiting for the winter snows to melt. Most of their days were spent waiting, and so they learned to embrace the quiet. They played games to pass the time. They sang songs and told stories and told jokes. They conversed with their neighbors. They prayed to God. They hugged their families. They stared into the fire and thought about life and death and the meaning of it all. They coped with the silence, and eventually they learned to appreciate it. And when it snowed, you listened to the hush of flakes falling on thatched roof. A soft, padded silence that calmed the mind. For centuries, peasants had known that life was hard, but it was also beautiful. And the silence of a winter's night was one of those beauties. Now, as we return from that cold, far-off night, let that peaceful stillness come with you. Let it settle over you like wool pulled up to your chin. Let the fire crackle in your mind, and know that even in hard times, sleep still found them. It will find you too. So close your eyes and rest like a peasant on a straw bed, with firelight on the wall, and dreams tucked gently under your arms. Good night. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.